Well, a very good evening to you. You are just in time for Channel 1 NewsHour on a day when 42 suspects wanted in connection with the scandal at NYS will remain in police custody until July. It is also a day when we have seen developments with the Ministry of Education ordering the disbandment of the entire board of the Moi Girls High School, and we've also seen the principal bowing out, opting for early retirements as the government continues to investigate an incident of rape at the institution. And that is what will be forming the basis of our interactive segment tonight, the latest developments from Moi Girls High School. And we're asking you, do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? Do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? The SMS line to engage with us is 22162. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to let me know who you are and where you're texting me from. On Twitter, you can talk to us at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Kato Achenga. Do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? That is the question tonight. Begin sending in your responses. I will be sampling them later on in this broadcast. But for now, let's focus on what's also coming up in the highlights. Suspects in the NYS money minting scandal to remain in custody until July.
I have today received a request for early retirement from the principal of Moi Girls School, Nairobi, Mrs. Bell Mreithi.
The current board of management of Moi Girls School, Nairobi, is dissolved with immediate effect.
Moi Girls principal forced out and school management board dissolved as investigations into rape allegations continue.
Anybody involved in any way with a scam must answer. And the day of reckoning is certainly coming.
And could this be a syndicate? Police impound sugar and cooking oil in Nairobi's Eastleigh estate. Welcome back. My name is Catherine Achenga. Our sign language interpreter this evening is Lucy Mora. Well, today is the 5th of June, which also means it is the World Environment Day, the national celebrations held in Kilifi County. But of course, that is what will be forming the basis of our interactive segment on Echo Watch later on. And we will be focusing on what is the status of our environment, even as we mark the World Environment Day. Of course, the greatest danger that was spoken about today is that of plastics. We have banned the use of plastic bags, but what about the plastic bottles and many other plastics that continue to choke our environment? That is the discussion we will be having, the environment scorecard, and my guests will be engaging John Kioli, who is the CEO of Green Africa Foundation, as well as Mithika Mwendwa, who is the CEO of Pan-Africa Climate Justice Alliance, to give us their perspective of where we are in the war when we are trying to clean up our environment. But for now, let's focus on what we have at the moment. And 42 suspects charged with the loss of 468 million shillings at the National Youth Service will remain in remand pending the hearing of their case. Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Douglas Oguti ruled that the gravity of their charges and its impact to the economy is a compelling reason to deny them bail. Ben Chumba has the report.
Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lillian Omolo and NYS Director General Richard Dubai are among 42 suspects who will remain in remand prison after the Anti-Corruption Court declined their bail application. In a ruling delivered by Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Douglas Oguti, all the suspects in the alleged theft of 468 million shillings at the National Youth Service will not enjoy freedom until their cases are heard and determined by the court. According to the Anti-Corruption Court, the suspects cannot be released on bond since the alleged charges are of serious economic crimes with the potential of causing anarchy, threat to peace and national security. In a movement to expedite the cases, the court directed all the suspects to appear in different courts from Wednesday to have the hearing of their cases set for July 2018 fixed. In the meantime, a police officer has been directed to confirm whether Youth Affairs Principal Secretary Lillian Omolo is admitted at the Kenyatta National Hospital after prison authorities failed to produce her in court. The suspects, who included government officers, business people and company bosses, are facing multiple counts, among them abuse of office, conspiracy to commit economic crimes, fraudulent acquisition of public property, and failure to comply with applicable procedures. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 NewsHour.
And also, the Kenya Pipeline Company Managing Director Joe Sang has zealously denied claims that the parastatal lost 95 billion shillings through fictitious contracts. The under fire KPC boss says the management can account for every tender entered into with several local and foreign contractors. The undertaking came even as European envoys committed to push for the establishment of a repatriation program where money stashed in foreign accounts will be returned back to the country. Eric Begon has the report.
Monday and Tuesday, the country woke up to new revelations of possible large-scale scam at the Kenya Pipeline Company. The amount in question is a staggering 95 billion Kenya shillings, allegedly lost to fictitious contracts entered into by the parastatal.
Sincere apologies for keeping you.
The damaging claims forced the corporation's management to issue a statement.
We find these allegations quite inaccurate, astonishing, maliciously calculated to injure KPC as a responsive organization that is currently fulfilling its mandate to the Kenyan people.
KPC boss Joe Sang, in fact, insists that to this day there is no evidence of any money lost from the corporation.
Our turnover in a year averages Kenya shillings 28 billion. Our average profit before tax for the last 10 years has been Kenya shillings 10 billion. So 95 billion shillings is 10 years of this company profit before tax.
In the over 1 hour press conference at the company's headquarters, Sang observed the parastatal from irregularities in the over 27 contracts involving the KPC and local and foreign companies.
All our projects in Kenya Pipeline, we follow the due process as set out in the State Corporation Act, the Public Finance Management Act, the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2015, and all relevant laws of the country of Kenya.
Instead, he says the financial situation at KPC is sound, citing 11.5 billion profits in the last financial year. The management of Kenya Pipeline Company is adamant that its deals and contracts were done above board and that no taxpayers' money were lost in the process. The Kenya Pipeline management spoke even as foreign envoys undertook to aid the ongoing war against corruption. Speaking during a meeting with the National Assembly's Defense Committee, the over 10 ambassadors drawn from Europe disclosed that they are pushing for the establishment of a repatriation program in a bid to recover money stashed in foreign banks.
A key distortion, a key injustice, and actually theft. It's a crime. And this hampers the full development of the country. I know the United Kingdom has been active in pursuing funds that are from corrupt origin.
In the meantime, renowned activist Okia Omtata has filed a case seeking to overturn the sacking of Kenya Ports Authority Managing Director Catherine Wahiri.
I've demonstrated in the petition that the group that met on 30th of May and decided to fire the MD and appoint an acting MD is not the bona fide board of the Kenya Ports Authority.
Omtata argues that the decision by the KPA board was in breach of the Constitution. Eric Biegon reporting for Channel 1 News.
And now elsewhere, Moi Girls High School is set to be headed by a new management after the government in drastic measures sent packing the entire board of management. The school's principal has also been forced out through early retirement, while the Parents and Teachers Association has been disbanded. The measures come following a rape incident at the institution on Saturday night. In the meantime, Parliament is demanding the installation of CCTV cameras in schools to ensure security of learners. Brenda Zedaradido with the details of the cleanup at the institution.
2 days after the government ordered the closure of Moi Girls High School for 1 week as investigations into an alleged rape incident continue, major changes have been announced by the Ministry of Education.
The current board of management of Moi Girls School, Nairobi, is dissolved with immediate effect. All parents of the school are advised to assemble at the institution on Thursday, the 7th of June at 10:30 a.m. 2018 to conduct fresh elections of new official representatives.
The school's principal, Jal Muraidi, opting to take early retirement amid mounting pressure for her removal.
Following Mrs. Muraidi's early retirement, Ms. Florence Omusula, one of the school's deputies, has been appointed in an acting capacity until the Teacher Service Commission appoints a substantive principal.
The government has further cracked the whip on the security personnel, ordering for an overhaul following a quality assurance report that revealed security gaps.
The ministry has provided 5 armed security officers, policemen, that will be guarding the school.
This comes as MPs are demanding extra security measures in schools.
We have issues of CCTV. If in the case of Moi Girls, if there was a CCTV program, up to now the intelligence are telling us they haven't located or even nabbed these individuals. Yet a CCTV is a very cheap gadget.
The new measures also specify teachers registered under the Teachers Employer TSC will handle extracurricular activities. Subordinate staff at the institution will also be subjected to fresh vetting before the school reopens on Sunday. The Ministry of Education has also sent out a warning to private and public schools against employing teachers who are not registered with the TSC.
If it's found that the boards of management or governance have recruited teachers that are not registered with the Teacher Service Commission to engage in co-curricular activities in the school, we will deregister the school. That school will be deregistered and it will be closed if it is a private school. If it's a public school, we will dissolve, as we have done today, the BOM.
Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed also defended the move by investigative agencies to have 5 male teachers and subordinates undergo DNA tests, as well as the decision to demolish illegal structures around the school.
That is the best test you have to say that I was not guilty, I was not involved, right? And I deplore and condemn what happened in this school as much as the rest of the country.
But even as students of Moi Girls High School, Nairobi, report to school on Sunday this week, the Ministry of Education says it will not take any chances when it comes to the safety and security of students, especially female students in public schools. Brenda Zada Radido, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
Of course, the government putting in place tough measures as it tries to address the situation at Moi Girls High School. One of the measures is the disbandment of the schools board, the PTA, and we've also seen the principal forced to go on early retirement as they try to find out really what happened on Saturday night in an incident which one of the students was raped in the dormitory. And that is what is forming the basis of our interactive segment tonight, the drastic measures by the government. And we're asking you, do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? Do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? The SMS line 22162. Share with me your thoughts. Don't forget to let me know who you are and where you're texting me from. On Twitter, you can talk to me at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle at Kato Achenga. Do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management is the question tonight. Well, in other news, security agencies in Nairobi have recovered over 1,000 bags of contraband sugar and 504 containers of cooking oil in an overnight operation carried out within the city's Eastleigh estate. Now, according to the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, 3 people are being questioned in connection with the consignment which was recovered at a go-down.
Trucks loaded with tons of sugar and cooking oil said to be contraband made their way to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations from a store in Eastleigh Estate as security agencies intensified their crackdown on counterfeits.
Let's take one.
According to the Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, 1,474 bags of suspect sugar as well as 504 20-litre containers of cooking oil were recovered, leading to the arrest of 3 people who failed to produce relevant documents.
Sugar whose origin is doubtful, whose provenance is doubtful, whose quality is doubtful, and when the individuals whom we found in possession of that product were asked to produce the necessary documents, no documents were forthcoming. And that's why we took the decision to seize them.
Specimens of the whole were taken to the government chemist for further tests, as most bags indicated that the sugar was meant for industrial purposes and not for human consumption. Boynet warning those conducting similar businesses that their days are numbered, saying the multi-agency teams carrying out the crackdowns are closing in.
And in execution of our mandate as National Police Service, we wish to serve notice to persons engaged in this trade, watafute biashara nyingine ya kufanya. Watafute biashara nyingine ya kufanya. The days of swamping this country with fake and counterfeit goods are drawing to an end.
The Deputy Head of Public Service, Wanyama Musiambo, questioned how the sugar entered the country despite having multi-agency teams at all border points. He warned officers found colluding with unscrupulous businessmen that their days were numbered.
There is a question mark. So the onus is on the public servants who have been tasked to man our exit and entry points. Each one of them is going to account for their activities because they have no other job. When they wake up in the morning to go to duty every morning, they go to ensure that it is only what is legitimate that comes in this country.
Similar crackdowns will now be carried out in all parts of the country to rid the market of illicit products.
And now to some politics, where coastal politicians have urged leaders to embrace the newfound unity between President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga. Now, the leaders who spoke in Kwale County hailed the government's commitment to development in the region and pledged their support based on their track record.
Mheshimiwa Naibu Rais, tumefurahi kwa sababu hii national handshake ambayo imekuwa golden handshake na ikaambatana vile vile na golden hug ndiyo imeweza kutupatia mazingira mazuri ya kuhakikisha tunafanya kazi ya maendeleo.
Mtu asije hapa kutudanganya ati anakuja anasema rais safari hii atakuwa mpwani ama Muislamu. Haya maneno hatutaki kusikia hapa. Nenda kule kwenu ukaseme rais awe mpwani, ndio tutajua wewe kweli unatupenda. Usishtushwe na maneno ya kuingia vichochoroni. Tuamini ukiingia vichochoroni unatoka na manufaa. Na sisi tuko nyuma yako, tutaingia kwenye vichochoro vidogo vidogo ili tukwambie penye shimo, penye ambapo pameharibika ili uweze kutengeneza. Inapofika 2022 hatuoni mtu mwingine, ni William Samoei Ruto.
And now a 9-member Senate ad hoc committee has been set up to probe the circumstances that led to the death of at least 50 people after a dam tragedy in Solai, Nakuru County. The committee is expected to table its findings and recommendations to prevent such tragedies in 2 months' time. This comes as victims of the tragedy continue to demand compensation.
A month after the tragedy, senators passed a motion to set up a special committee tasked with investigating the incident.
This time we want to see a Senate that has teeth. We want recommendations that can propose stern action.
The committee will also look into ways of compensation plan for affected families. The committee is also expected to propose measures to mitigate any such eventual disasters, especially for counties prone to floods and landslides. The senators who are demanding accountability from the dam owners also accused the Kenya Water Resource Management Authority of complicity, having failed to raise a red flag over the status of the dam in Solai.
Kiongozi mzuri ama manager mzuri ni yule ambaye kipeana kazi alafu huifuatilia. Sisi tuwatunga sheria vizuri, lakini baadaye mfuatilio hakuna. Watu wanatepetea mle njiani, hawafanyi kazi zao. Hakuna anayewaambia kwa nini wanafanya hivi.
The committee is expected to present its report to the Senate within 60 days.
Well, you are watching Channel 1 NewsHour. It's time for us to take a short break. But before we do that, a quick reminder of our opinion poll question. Tonight, we are asking you, do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? Do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? 22162 is the SMS line. Continue sending your feedback. Don't forget to let me know who you are and where you're texting me from. On Twitter, you can talk to me at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Kato Achenga. Do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? When we come back, of course, we'll also be moving to our interactive segment, Eco Watch. And tonight we focus on World Environment Day. Where are we as a country? What is the status of the environment? What is the scorecard? And that is what I will be discussing with my guests, John Kioli from the Green Africa Foundation, as well as Mithika Mwendwa from the Pan-Africa Climate Justice Alliance. So stay tuned for that after this break.
Ametuambia atutuame kwa hiyo nyumba yetu ya mawe tuende tukakodisha nyumba ya matope. Zablon.
Mama, unafanya nini hapa? Kuna shida nyumbani?
Shida iko hapa.
We choose to go. Go to explore the magical beauty around you. Where no one thought we would go. We have gone for coursework, only to find more adventure, discovering something unfamiliar.
Which is quacking. When you step, it's like a bouncing castle.
At times, we look back just how we got here and where we might be going. And when we think our journey has reached an end, you will be surprised it is just the beginning. Magical Scenes with Irene Muchuma Odim, Thursdays only on KBC Channel 1.
Welcome back. You're watching Channel 1 NewsHour. Our opinion poll question tonight, we're asking you, do you support the move to disband the Moi Girls Board of Management? 22162 is the SMS line to send me your feedback. You can also talk to me at KBC Channel 1 at Kato Achenga. That is the Twitter handle. Now, on to other matters, because today is World Environment Day. There are calls to increase the plastic waste resulting in marine pollution resounded in Kwale County as Kenyans joined the rest of the globe in marking World Environment Day. Now, Deputy President William Ruto, who presided over the event, called on Kenyans to cultivate a cleanup culture, directing a monthly cleanup day to help inculcate the habit. Juni Karisa has the report.
Estimated that 10 million tons of plastic waste finds its way into the ocean annually, a move that has caused dire implications to the ecosystem, heightening efforts to eradicate marine pollution in the country as well as the whole world. The ripple effect of plastic pollution is partly to blame for the dwindling fish species in the ocean. The situation is posing a security threat in the area as fishermen in Lunga Lunga are forced to illegally cross the border in search of fish stocks for their families.
Wako vijana 100 karibu na 20 wameshikwa na Navy wameshikwa, wako hapa Kwale. Mimi naomba tafadhali ingililia swala hili.
Deputy President William Ruto underscored the need to tame plastic pollution in order to safeguard the fishing and tourism industries.
Together with various stakeholders, the government has initiated robust mechanisms including a take-back system by manufacturers, cleanup exercises in various counties, and increased recycling efforts. I direct the Ministry of Environment and Forestry to introduce a monthly national cleanup day to be marked in all counties, towns, villages, schools, colleges, and universities.
During celebrations to mark the World Environmental Day in Kwale County, Ruto reiterated the government's commitment to protect mangrove forests along the coastline, directing that 40,000 seedlings be planted.
As carbon-rich ecosystems, mangroves can make an important contribution to the country's nationally determined contributions despite their limited spatial extent. In Kenya, carbon stored in mangroves is estimated to be 10 times higher than in terrestrial forests.
Environment Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko called for the enactment of the Mangrove National Plan to safeguard the ecosystem, sentiments echoed by Kwale Governor Salim Vuria.
It is an ambitious plan, Your Excellency, but which has not been budgeted for. And I see a potential, Your Excellency, to uplift the livelihoods of communities.
Juni Karisa for Channel 1 News from Kwale County.
Well, it's time for EcoWatch, and of course our focus tonight is what is the status of the environment, coming at a time when we are marking the World Environment Day, and the greatest concern is the environment is choking under plastics, and in fact it is believed that microplastics in the sea are more than the stars in the galaxy. That is how big the problem is, and we're just trying to look at what are some of the things that we can do to try and improve our environment, sustain our environment, to ensure we have a proper way of life, and to help us understand more on the status of the environment. Joining me now is John Kioli, who is the chairperson of the Kenya Climate, as well as a member of the National Climate Change Council, as well as the CEO for Green Africa Foundation, that is Mithika Mwenda from the Pan-Africa Climate Justice Alliance, and we will be discussing some of these issues. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to our studios today. All right, looking at a scorecard, on a scale of 1 to 10, in your perspective, where do you think we are in terms of taking care of our environment, the status of our environment?
I think I will give 4.
4?
Yeah.
That is below 50%.
Yes.
Why is that?
You know, we have, first and foremost, we are from today, we also were celebrating as they were at the national level. We joined the Nairobi County government to plant trees, and they bring people together. So we planted around 50,000 the whole 2 weeks. So that is action. So the problem which we have in Kenya is that there is a lot of policies. And we are very good in doing policies, but implementation becomes zero.
So you have a problem with the implementation bit of it.
Policy implementation and the policy failure.
Yeah. What about for you? He said 4. What would you?
Great. Thanks for hosting us today. I think for me, I can give it, I'll add another 2 to make it 7. The reason why I'm saying this
another 2 would make it 6.
Would make it 6, yes, to make it 6.
Yes.
The reason why I'm saying this is because towards the end of 2016, we got the Climate Change Act signed by the President, which was a gift to this country. And I think that catapults the whole issue of environment and the essence that the government is quite involved in it. Number 2, we are seeing a lot of energized Ministry of Environment right now with Honorable Tobiko. And I think this again shows commitment from government that we are moving to the right direction, although there are so many obstacles. But you can see that really it's getting the attention politics can take, attention the health sector can take, attention the education sector can take, because nobody talks about environment.
So what obstacles do you feel you're still facing?
I think issues of sustainability of the policies my brother has talked about are challenging. When you looked at the sector of charcoal sector right now, most of the counties, about quite a number of counties in the charcoal hotspots have banned charcoal. But right now, the charcoal industry is fighting back because these are cartels and these are people who have been living, feeding on charcoal. It's a 32 billion industry. So it must fight back. So for me, I think you see a lot of commitment from one side, but it will take time to sustain it.
Mithika, as he's saying, the cartels are fighting back, but are we giving them options when we tell them we have banned charcoal? What are the options?
Actually, that is a very good question, because you realize that the country, I think 80% of the population relies on biomass in cooking and domestic energy. And so when we are saying let us abandon charcoal, what options do we give these communities? Remember that most of them are not reached by electricity. The national grid, we are trying, of course, the last mile and those others, but we have not reached there. So what I was saying is, we need actually a policy. Whether we have I know we have a very progressive, a very good, active minister who is actually making things be done, but we need to think beyond an individual, because we need sustainable, we need effective institutions and effective policies. We have MCA, we have at climate change level, we have national climate change policy, we have national green economy policy, we have everything. And what he's talking about, look at the Climate Change Act 2016. If you look at its origin, it was actually not even the government we started. This was started, it was an effort between us, civil society, and members of parliament. The government, Minister of Environment, came just later when we raised momentum on it. And so, and that's why we are talking about that policy implementation, because policy will not end by only formulation without that implementation. We have done actually just 1 minute. This is now National Climate Change Action Plan 1. We have exhausted this 2017, and we are doing another one. Now we have started doing another one. So the question is, what did we achieve? If we look at this, we didn't.
Best, you know what you're saying. This is another document.
Yes.
So what have you done in terms of implementation of this particular document?
And these are the question. Actually, I hope that is a rhetorical question, because it is not an individual as myself or Mithika, not him. It's the whole system. What have we done? So what happened is that we had a very good policy, but it didn't have resources to implement.
So there is no money to
no money and the resources, and even that implementation framework, which was activated by the new Climate Change Act. So in what we are envisioning is NCAP 2 is going to have now framework, because we have the law which is going to be implemented. We are doing well.
So the goodwill to implement it is what you're pushing.
Well, it is there.
Okay. All right. Let's look at, what you've talked about charcoal. We are talking about the World Environment Day.
Yes.
The theme today, of course, is a focus on beating plastic pollution.
Yes.
Kenya banned plastic bags, but we still have the problem of plastic bottles. How do we address this?
Thanks. I think world over, we deposit about 300 million metric tons of plastic annually, globally, and only 10% is recycled. That is a huge amount of plastic that ends somewhere. And the records show that 7% goes to the sea. So, as the government officials were saying back in Kwale, that we are destroying our own environment, this needs to go down to the users of plastic. We need to go advocacy level to the people so that they realize the environment belongs to them. Second thing is that I believe this was a good move, but options were not given to the users of plastic.
So how do you think we can change the consumer habits? Because
that's the thing. If you want to pack meat, it's a bit challenging. You want to pack your sukumas, it's a bit challenging. So I think what we need now is to come up with, actually the government should come up with a very good strategy of what is the replacement of plastic bags. Because it's a big problem, and I think right now people really want to do away with them, but they don't know what to replace it.
It's a question of, again, do you give them an option? When you ban the plastics,
what
are you telling them to use?
This should go hand in hand,
and
enforcement should be upped a little bit, because enforcement is not, it's only like, for me, the enforcement is at 20%.
Is at 20%?
To be sincere, because you can still see them.
So how do you think we can address it?
I think it just all boils around the culture. How do we culture ourselves? And the question of the mode of production and consumption, which we have. If I ask you, what is the source of those plastics? And the bigger question for us in Kenya, now that we are thinking about sustainability, we are thinking about the challenge of climate change. We are talking about all these other challenges which are affecting us. So when we look at that plastic in a narrow perspective, that is where we are going to make we are making a mistake, because every time now we need even to ask ourselves how did we reach here? Yes, it was banned, but people are using it because they have no options. So I think we really need to be, that was actually a milestone. And we are celebrating and celebrating all over the world.
So has it been effective, the ban on plastics itself?
Well, I think we have made some progress in that, but we need to do more. How we need to do more is to incentivize the private sector, for instance. Because we have seen, then you go to a supermarket these days, unless I have capacity to buy a 10 shilling bag. But what about that woman in the village who will not afford that? So I think Kenyans are very innovative. We invented the M-Pesa, which has gone viral across the globe, and even this one. So I think we can, and I think we are making progress in cities, but we need really. So it is not about enforcement. It is not about forcing people. I think let us
it's more of
people,
empowerment,
changing people's habits.
All right, let's look at another aspect of the environment, climate change. One day we are talking about flooding. That has been the situation for the past couple of weeks. Now we are also talking about we're heading towards drought. Obviously, the climate change is a big issue. In terms of addressing it, where do you think we are as a country?
I think the government has, as a country, let me say as a country, we have tried, because in 2010 we had the National Climate Change Response Strategy. In 2013 we had the National Climate Change Action Plan. And good enough, in 2016 the President signed the Climate Change Act 2016. Right now we have policies which can be able to move this agenda quite forward. What we need is most of the counties have actually embraced issues of climate change. I'm aware that 42 counties have a CEC who is actually directly dealing with climate change. For me, that's a milestone. And about 5 counties, namely Wajir, Isiolo, Garissa, Kitui, and Makueni, already have a climate change legislation. So for me, that is already done. What we need to do
What about coordination between the national and the county government?
That's where I'm going to. Yes. We need the counties, because most of the work, about 80%, is implemented by the counties. We need the counties to entrench climate change in their CIDP and put some resources to climate change. But finally, I think we need to look at climate change and disaster risk reduction, what Red Cross does, to marry it together with issues of climate change, so that we set aside money, not for emergency, but to plan ahead. We know that Tana River will flood at this moment, and we cannot just wait for Tana River to flood. We have mechanisms, and we put resources aside, not just resources for disaster. We need to merge the two, so that these two organizations are talking. Organizations of climate change and organizations of emergency, so that we plan ahead and we put resources in issues of climate change as well as disaster.
Is there clarity, between how the national and the county government will work for this really to kick off?
I think we have actually a very impressive framework, the Climate Change Act 2016. That has solved all the problem. It defined the role of the counties, the National Climate Change Council as the Council of Governors chair as a member, and at local level it is really defining. Many counties actually are requesting us to help them, even as we speak now, to see how they can trickle down the National Climate Change Act at county level. And
but are resources being generated towards this, been allocated towards this implementation?
Well, these are some of the issues which, and you have to understand actually the challenge of climate change. Kenya, as a third world country, developing country, according to the climate change, the Paris Agreement and all those international agreements we have signed, we can, I think we have put a lot of resources into this. But the question is, do we have that capacity even to absorb the disasters which we have? In Kikuyu Springs, where we end up meeting today, those are the questions people are asking. The challenge and the impacts of climate change are so intense that we can, as a country, we are going to exhaust all our resources if we put resources into doing it. And that's why the question of responsibility of the donors and those countries, because it is not the cause of us, but of those countries which cause this problem. But that's aside, we have also a responsibility. We have done our responsibility, and the responsibility is that we have the law. Right now, I'm aware that even the Treasury is going to put money into the National Climate Change Fund already. So all those things are being done. But how far will we go? So what we need to do as a country is we need to look at climate change now as an opportunity. There are a lot of resources. There is been established an international bank on climate change, the Green Climate Fund based in South Korea. We have at African level many funds which are there. Are we tapping that before we even think about ours? So these are some of the things, and I think with this framework we are going to be able to reach there.
All right. As a National Climate Change Council, I know you've been set up to do the work of coordination. In terms of environmental threats, what are some of the things that you think you need to prioritize, even as we wind up the show, because we've run out of time?
One is actualization of the Climate Change Directorate, which is now up and running, and populating it with resources. I'm aware the parliamentary committee passed like 200 million towards this agenda, and I think that's a milestone. Number two is actualizing of the Climate Change Council so that it has the teeth, because it's chaired by the President, and it has the teeth to have that mission of controlling climate change in the country. The third thing is the connection between the counties and the national government. I think the process has already started, but we need also the counties to understand that they are the people on the ground, they are the people who need to push the agenda, and they are the people suffering. So if they push the agenda, they put resources towards climate change and the national government, and you can see there's a lot of goodwill, we can push the agenda of climate change easily.
All right, Mwenda, I know you're really trying to do a lot of awareness when it comes to environment. That is something that we've also seen the government really keen on. And you have come up with the words, perhaps for the media, to try and encourage. Tell us about that as we wind up the
Thank you very much. But before I mention, I want to mention two things about the council. So we need actually, over and above the council, we need people's ownership of those processes. We need to trickle them down.
So that is directed to John.
So it is not even about John, it is about all of us who are participants in this and stakeholders. So coming to this, the challenge of climate change is that we have not been, the awareness, though it affects many people, they do not link their livelihoods challenges with it in such a way that when we talk about Ministry of Agriculture, are they affected by climate change when it doesn't rain? What about the energy we use? We rely on energy. When there is no water, there is. But now the problem is no one really, there is very little awareness. And to address that, we decided to establish an award scheme for Africa. BAGA is an African continental organization, but based in Kenya. So we have been doing that, and today, actually, with the Nairobi, at the event at Nairobi County, we established this African Climate Change and Environmental Reporting Awards. So we started so that now we are going to reward journalists. It is to incentivize journalists so that they can report more and spread awareness. And you are also welcome to send a story.
We are already doing something. We have the EcoWatch show.
Thank you.
That is
even EcoWatch actually is a good candidate. So we are waiting for that entry, and I think there is a lot of lucrative incentives to do that and to encourage the journalists.
All right, Mwenda, we've run out of time, but thank you both gentlemen for coming to our studios. Of course, I've been talking to Mithika Mwenda, who is the CEO for Pan-Africa Climate Justice Alliance, as well as John Kioli, who is the CEO for Green Africa Foundation, just putting into perspective where we are as a country when it comes to protecting our environment, given that today we were marking the World Environment Day. Very soon, I will be ushering in Regina Manyara-Gita with the day's business, but before that, we have an update as regards an accident that has taken place where the Kenya Airports Authority is confirming that there have been reports of a missing flight from Kitale to Nairobi, which was operated by FlySax, and the flight was last seen on the radar at about 2 p.m. this afternoon at 40 nautical miles from Nairobi, and it was flying at 11,000 feet above the sea level. Search and rescue teams are on the ground, and agencies have been activated immediately this evening, and so far there have been no results. The whereabouts of the plane is not yet known, and they have posted the search for the night, and they will be resuming the search in the morning. So as of this moment, the flight is still missing. That is flight 5YCAC that was traveling from Kitale to Nairobi. Of course, we will continue to keep you updated of this particular events. 8 people are said to have been on board that particular plane. So we will keep you updated on that. But for now, we end Echo Watch show. But Regina Manyara-Gitawa is up next with the day's business.
This Thursday on Road to Success.
My boss asked me when I was employed, if you weren't an auditor, what will you be doing? And I said, I will be cooking. And he said, why are you not cooking? I said, I am cooking. He said, no, you need to cook. I said, I'm going to cook.
It's always being said in business, know your competitor weakness for you to beat him through his weakness.
Road to Success. Only on KBC Channel 1.
Good evening, I'm Regina Manyara-Gitawa. Now we shift to focus from matters environment and to matters business. Kenya will from May next year start to test the viability of using local currency in power purchase agreements as the country seeks to shield electricity customers from volatility of the dollar. The pilot will involve 10 megawatts power plant as at the recommended by the study commissioned by the Energy Regulatory Commission, targeting to reduce the forex risk exposure. As Ronald Willie reports, this comes as Kenya is targeting to generate an additional 4,000 megawatts of clean power over the next 10 years.
Of the 11 components on your monthly electricity bill from Kenya Power is the forex adjustment, which according to the electricity distributor is related to the fluctuation of hard currencies against the Kenyan shilling for expenditure denominated in the currencies related to the power sector. These include repayment of project loans and power purchase agreements often priced in dollars. A slight fluctuation has often seen this cost passed to consumers.
The calculation again was over the last 15-year period, which was the end of the study looked at. That foreign currency component in our energy bills has added about 20 billion shillings in terms of bills over the last 15 years.
According to a study commissioned by ERC, adopting a local currency tariff for power purchase agreements will ease risk associated with forex fluctuations.
The payments that Kenya Power makes to project developers are in dollars, yet the revenues that they receive from consumers are in Kenyan shillings. So Kenya Power bears the risk of any loss due to depreciation in the Kenyan shilling. They pass that risk on to you and me, to the Kenyan consumer, and it shows up in your monthly electricity bills.
This target projects generating up to 10 megawatts of power, while those above 10 megawatts would be a mix of local and hard currencies, depending on the generation technology. Kenya is also seeking to mobilize at least 4.45 trillion shillings from pension funds, commercial banks, and insurance companies to finance generation of 4,000 megawatts of green energy.
Once we have these local currency denominated PPAs,
it is an immediate opportunity for our local banks, because our local banks will be able to fund some of these portions of the investments in the power generation.
And we already have a pool of these projects from developers who have put in expressions of interest. The capacity that we have under consideration is up to 4,000 megawatts. That's already been proposed. We will select from these projects one project for any developer who is willing to go on the pilot phase.
The first pilot project under the local currency tariff regime is expected in May next year before fully being rolled out. Ronald Willie, NewsHour Business.
That is indeed a welcome move if it is going to bring the cost of electricity down. Now, the government plans to put up a commercial airport at the Masai Mara Triangle as part of efforts to boost tourist numbers. Tourism Principal Secretary Fatma Hirsi says the introduction of commercial airlines will boost Masai Mara's attractiveness by tourists by reducing time taken to access the tourism site as well as cut transport costs. The wild beast migration at the Masai Mara is the seventh wonder of the world. This annual phenomena is Kenya's main tourist attraction and marks the beginning of the tourism high season.
We're in discussions with the Ministry of Transport so that we have a proper airport that serves the Masai Mara. We have proper roads that are tarmacked towards the Mara, and we're working very well in government to make the roads and the infrastructure access to tourism destinations given priority.
This is a move in the right direction. We need to encourage partnerships when it comes to investments.
The government plans to put up a commercial airport at the heart of the Mara Triangle in efforts geared at improving tourist experience as well as boosting tourist numbers.
That should be what we should be craving for, to make it easier for the tourists to move around the whole of East African region.
Tourism PS Fatima Hirsi says operationalization of the airport would boost Mara's attractiveness to tourists through the convenient and fast transport services.
It should be a 365 days a year destination, and that can be achieved if we make it affordable and accessible to domestic tourists and the regional tourists. So let's milk the high season dry, but then when it's not high season, let's bring the rates down so that the ordinary mwananchi can come and enjoy this.
She called on hoteliers to come up with packages that would ensure tourists keep visiting the Mara all year round instead of the current biannual high season. Rehabilitation of the Ewaso Nyiro to Masai Mara road is ongoing. Now, even before the first convoy of trucks carrying 600 barrels of crude oil from Lokichar to Mombasa reach their destination, Turkana County residents in Kenya should come up with comprehensive guidelines on how to host counties would spend the proceeds. Our reporter Carol Njenga, who interacted with Turkana County residents, files the following report.
It is a day that went down in history as Kenya got closer to becoming an exporting country. 4 insulated tank containers, each carrying 150 barrels of oil, will be leaving for Mombasa every day in a journey expected to take 3 days per trip. At each stop, the crude oil will be tested to check the temperature of the oil, as Kenya's crude oil is considered very waxy.
You know, the nature of our crude oil is waxy, and we want to know, when we're building up the pipeline, how much heat do we need? Do we really need the heat?
When drilling, the crude oil comes out in 3 forms: water, oil, and gas. The hydrocarbons are then pumped up through an insulated pipeline and go straight into the separators, where the gas goes to the flare and the liquid are pumped into the storage tanks. Talo Oil, Africa Oil Corporation, and Total have so far produced about 80,000 barrels of crude oil from the wells in Turkana East and Turkana South. Talo Oil is currently producing 4 barrels of oil per day and targets to increase this to at least 2,000 barrels daily.
About 300-400 barrels of oil today. We're bringing on some more wells over the coming months, and as that builds up, then that will determine when we actually get to the export of oil to the international markets.
And though the production of oil will enable Kenya to establish herself as a crude oil exporter, Turkana residents want the government to come up with comprehensive guidelines on how the host county would spend the proceeds from crude oil before the projected exports begin in January next year.
Kuna baadhi ya mambo ambayo itatekelezwa ya community. Kwa mfano mambo ya mchanga, tunataka tujue mambo ya mchanga itaenda namna gani, kama itakuwa na ile wakati displacement ya watu tutakuwa namna gani. Jambo la pili ni maendeleo pipi ambayo itatufikia haraka.
Kama sisi ni pastoralist. Sasa tunataka maneno kama restocking na maneno ya kututengenezea pasture ya animals zetu.
Some locals feel the 5% allocation reserved to the local community should be shared out to each resident.
Nataka kujua kama wanaweza kutupatia watupatie kwa njia kama ATM, kila mtu anaandikiwa yake na apewe kwa njia ya ATM.
Wakipata at least percentage kidogo in cash itawasaidia. Itatusaidia kama itakuwa kwa mikono yetu wenyewe, itatusaidia.
Talo Oil and joint ventures say they have so far invested $2 billion in the crude oil project.
Well, the flagging off of a convoy of trucks, each carrying 150 barrels of oil, marks a great milestone for the Kenyans as well as the government. This gives an opportunity for the government to look out for international markets where they can be able to export this oil once it accumulates to 400,000 barrels of oil. Caroline Jenga reporting for NewsHour Business.
Well, that puts a cap on Matters Business. Catherine is up next with what has been happening in the sporting arena. I'm Regina Manyara-Gita. Do have yourself a pleasant evening.
Onisuza's 68-minute kick was set by Singida goalkeeper Peter Manyika. The two teams failed to score in regular time and sport kicks were used to decide the winner. FC Leopards missed 2 of its 4 kicks while Singida missed 1.
It's Boro against Manyika and Boro puts it in the net.